committee's order. And I just wanted to call a minute of silence for the Humboldt Broncos before we get going here. So we'll do that now. Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Councilor McCann.
The council adopt the agenda of the Monday, April 9th, 2018 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting as presented.
Seconder of that. Casey. All in favor? Adoption of the minutes for March 12th, 2018 PP committee meeting.
The council adopt the minutes of the March 12th, 2018 PNP committee meeting as presented.
Councilor Kirby. All in favor? Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none. No delegations or petitions, so moving to correspondence, economic development capacity building fund, 2017, NDIT, project number 475120. Information or discussion? Councilor Kirby?
Move for information.
Second of that. Councilor McCann. All in favor? Okay, I think there's no reports. 8.1, comparison of regional library wages. I'll start this off. We had a report come from staff that showed the wages, and there was some areas that we were fairly low on, although there were some that we were high, and there were some that we were right in line. But I think we should be within the average. I'd like to see that. I don't know what council thinks of that. Councilor McKay?
Yeah, I think an average wage amongst comparative communities is probably the fairest way to go. It's been kind of neglected over the past little while, a few years. But, the 2% doesn't quite doesn't get us up to that point yet. I think we should take a look and see what puts us right into that median mark.
Councilor Casey?
Thank you, Worship. I certainly don't have any problems with it, and I think it's imperative that we keep the wages for any of those that are working with us and so forth at a comparable level. And from it seems to me here that we are dropping behind, and I certainly have no problems in bringing that up to a level that is comparable.
Anybody else? Councilor Howe?
Do we set the wages for the library? Does the district tell me we're going to set the wages?
I don't know. I don't think we do. I think their board does.
Right.
But
so
we can make suggestions at these.
In my mind, if the board wants to raise the wages of the people, then they can cut the hours back. There's other ways to do it than just increasing the budget all the time. So we don't set the wages. It's not our choice what the wages are. The library board does that. If the library board needs to find places to find money, that's what they need to do. We've already approved the 2.5% increase this year, and we keep coming back to this and bringing it up and up and up and up, so. To me, I think at some point we gotta say enough's enough, right? You cut the hours back by, 5.8 hours, if you cut that back, that's 10% of the wages you can increase right there. So, there's other ways to look at it, so.
I'm pretty happy with what goes on at the library, and if we can do this without cutting it back, I would like to see that. Supplying the funds that they can come up to the average, I think is the way I'd like to see it.
Some of the communities we're comparing ourselves to, like Taylor or Chetwynd. Well, Chetwynd's got a theater, things like that. Taylor, you're a hop, skip, and a jump from Fort St. John. Here is the library is used by students. We don't have theater. We don't have a bowling alley. We have, and I think it's a little bit more valuable than maybe these other communities, what the library is to them. And I'm gonna repeat it again. I mean, the services that this library provides. I know a lot of other libraries provide similar, but I mean, these ones are secondary to none. And that's why I don't have an issue with topping it up to, as we had just discussed there.
Yeah, what comes out.
So another point that's not noted in the report is the amount of employees that they have for that wage. So if you have a whole bunch of more employees than than Fort St. John does or whatever, it's not a good comparison. You can cut one person and you can increase wages. There's you don't know how many people that they have as an average wage. So.
But I think a comparison between Fort St. John and Tumbler Ridge is not a good comparison either. But it's all we got. That's what I'm working on. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Worship. I've talked to Paula several times on this and trying to, figure this out. And they discussed and they looked at cutting hours back and they didn't figure it would work. Programming hours. They usually takes 2 hours of programming to run a 1 hour program. I think we kind of just threw numbers out there. So they're looking at, the page would stay the same. The clerks would move to, this is just an example, to $20 an hour. Head programmer to between $28, $29 an hour. That's kind of roughly some numbers that they threw out. If we want to go that high, I think that what this council has to decide is at least, is there going to be an increase? Is it going to be what they're asking for? Or are we going to cut it back a bit? But these are the numbers that they think would work for them. I think we all know that the library serves a great purpose for Tumbler Ridge. I know all the residents and all the mums, everybody who uses it has, we're lucky to have it, and it's running really well. So do we want to have those wages comparable to other wages in the community? And I know they're saying, well, no, we're not comparing them to union wages, but I mean, comparisons in our community, they're going to be close to the district and to the school district wages. So, I don't know. It's one thing when you set a wage, your higher wage. I always feel you can't really come back from that. So, is the library worth the increase? I think it is, but just at what, what's council willing to vote on? I guess we're going to be having to look for recommendations soon coming up because we're going to be voting on this. So that's...
Yeah, thanks, Worship. Yeah, I think they're a valuable asset to our community. There's no question. The stuff they do through the library. I know we pre-approved a 2% increase on their budget. That's not in this document today. So the 2% is not already added in. And the report that Paula had supplied Mr. Wall, I think overall it's 5%. So that's not included. That's the 2% is not in there. So they're asking for 3% more than what we gave them. Is what they're asking for. Now I know we don't set wages, and it states right in here we don't do that. It all says that we can request the amount brought back to the library and more or less to meet those positions. It doesn't mean they have to follow that. I actually sit on the library, so I'll definitely take the direction of council if they so decide to do that. But again, I'd be one vote on that board as well. So they don't have to follow this here. They could take that money and give the director more money and so on. So just be aware of that as well. We can only give a suggestion. But they are valuable, and, you know, I think we gotta figure out what we wanna do there, whether it's the full 5% or less, or, I mean, like you said, your worship, it's hard to compare Fort St. John and stuff like that. And Mr. McKay said about, you know, Chetwynd has a movie theater and stuff like that. Well, we have a movie theater that's put on through our rec center, community center right now. We'll be moving to our youth center, so we do offer that as well now. So I think we need to do something. The 2% was there, but I think council's got to decide if they want to increase that budget line for the wage increase.
Just wanted to let you know the library has responded. I sent it out to council, but the total increase with that average wage would be $58,000 on top of the library's budget. What they got last year compared to what they would be getting this year should that average wage goes through is $58,000. So that outside of that 2%, it wouldn't be $58,000 plus 2%. It would be that $58,000.
When I was in St. Paul, we had this discussion too, and she was more adamant that you brought your staff up to a level that was more suitable. So that's what I'm getting on. Councilor Hall, did you have something more? Sorry, your hand.
No, I just think you need more information here than what's provided in the report. I think you need to look at an overall budget. Like I say, if Tumbler Ridge has, I don't know, 4 pages and Chetwynd has a bunch more pages, you need to look at the overall budget numbers, right? I'm talking about the overall number that we have to provide to the library to have the services that we have there. You know, and they do take on a lot of additional services. It is time for us to, instead of just increasing the amount and that provide to them, maybe it's time for us to look a little harder at those issues and the stuff that the library has taken off of the BC government and the federal government, that we go to them and try to come up with some way to get somebody in town that lessens that burden. You know, we all talk about all the additional stuff that our library provides for people, but why does that come back to the municipality to have to pay for it? BC government's supposed to be paying for that type of stuff. You know, I understand people can't get out of Tumbler Ridge all the time, but, you know, maybe there's other options than just us saying, yeah, we'll just, you know, use our magic wand all the time to fix all the problems by throwing more money at it, right? So.
Well, personally, I just think that we have to give them the funds that they can bring up to the average wage. That's all I'm looking to do here. If there's other issues, I mean, those can be addressed, but I don't think at this time, this is what was brought to us. So,
Council, you can't make this decision today. So you've got a couple options. You can put a motion on the floor today to move. That would be, if it passed, would move to the next council meeting. One of you could determine the motion that you want to have and move it as a notice of motion at a following council meeting. There won't be any recommendation coming from administration here. One, it's not administration's role to set the library wages for other places, and as Councillor Howe noted, this is just a salary comparison. It's not a services comparison across different libraries. So you guys are going to have to decide what you want to do here.
Councilor McKay.
So the 55,000, whatever else was there, that's just to bring us up to the medium of other libraries. That's not dictating what the hourly rates are going to be. Is that correct?
The library board, sorry.
The library board. Okay.
So the library board will set the salaries within the library. I mean, there's 2 different aspects here. There's the aspect of, can you tell them what to do? No, you can't tell them what to do. Or you can tell them what to do. They don't have to listen to you, other than the fact that they will be back next year asking for a budget again. So if they don't listen, I would imagine the council would take that into account. There's a different council next year anyway, so what they would do, I can't guarantee. You guys would have to talk to the library and say this is money is for this, and you would hope that they follow through on it, and from there, you can't force them. They're not municipal employees.
Okay, so then can I put a motion forward that this come to our regular meeting?
Yeah.
For approval or rejection, one of the 2?
Yeah.
Okay, let's put-
Seconder for that motion. Councilor Cook.
What's the motion?
Any more discussion on it?
What's the motion?
Oh, the motion is to bring it to the next meeting.
The amount?
The amount,
Okay.
this amount brings it up to what the median is.
The medium, we're talking, so discussion?
Go ahead.
The medium we're talking about is what's listed on our page right here.
That'd be a question for.
Right, that's what you're talking about?
How do you create the medium if you don't know the number of employees at the other places? Is this based on one employee at each level?
No, so what this is just a salary comparison. So here's the position.
So how do we come up with 58,000?
So here's the position, right? And then that's what that position makes in the other community. Here's the position, that's what the position makes. And then based on what happened was based on what the table here says on that average, the library took a look at what their staffing costs are going to be. And I want to be clear, this isn't something that administration puts together, but the library took a look at, based on the amount of hours for each position, this is what it's coming back to. If council's looking at a more in-depth comparison where we're getting into what services are offered, how many people are doing what, and what the total budget is for libraries, that's a completely different task. And you're probably going to have to find somebody else to do it, get a professional to take a look at the services offered, because on staff, we don't have that person that can go into the libraries and say, you know, for example, this is an innovative program that's worth $15,000, where this is a cookie cutter program worth $5,000. We don't have that type of ability. So this is what this position makes in Tumbler Ridge. This is what this position makes in Chetwynd, Fort Nelson, Dawson Creek. And then based on that difference, the library took a look at their costs and provided these numbers back to us, which was 58,000.
How many directors do we have at the library in Tumbler Ridge?
I'm not aware.
How many head programmers do we have at the library in Tumbler Ridge? Clerk, page, any ideas? Nobody knows. But give them $58,000 to distribute that money between however they want. To me, you need to have an understanding of how many positions are at the other libraries before you can compare their budgets to ours. And if you don't have that, you don't have anything. The $58,000 was a number that's created by the board or the public library. It's not created by staff, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so we need to have a little bit better look at that before we just say, yeah, let's throw 58,000 at it and see what they, maybe we have 6 pages and they have 1 in Fort St. John. I don't know, maybe it's the other way around, but.
The comparison was made by staff.
He just said it wasn't. He said 58,000 is not from him.
That sheet there is not made by staff.
So just to go back to it, the position to position salary was compiled by staff. That average was compiled by staff. How that average would filter down into the total increase in the library's budget was submitted by the library. I'm not aware of how many positions each have. I'm not aware of how many hours they work. This is not my job. It's not in my jurisdiction. This is done by a completely separate board. That board makes the application to council. Now, council, you can make requests for whatever information that you want. I'm telling you, if you go back and ask staff to make this comparison, we can do what the best we can, but we're not experts in library programming. It would be better to have somebody else take a look at it. So you guys are just going to have to determine what your next step is. Your next step could be, we're fine with the 58, we're fine with the original request, we're fine with nothing, or we need more information. So you have all your options laid out in front of you. And was Councillor Mackay's motion made and seconded?
Yes, it was.
It was. So then I would suggest you deal with that motion and see where to go.
I consider.
So I can answer a couple of those, Councilor Howell. We have 1 director, 1 head programmer, and they average 9 to 12 employees. Where they sit between clerk and page, I'm not sure. So 9, and then they do have some summer students. I believe that's what they said. It was pretty much 9 throughout the year, and then they do bump it up to 12. So I know there's 1 director, 1 head programmer, and then I'm assuming the rest are clerks, and then the pages maybe mixed in there.
Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Worship. When I talked to Paula today, they have 3 pages right now that rotate 3 to 6 hours a week. So
36 hours a week?
3 to 6 hours a week.
3 to 6 hours a week.
Yeah.
Okay, any more? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Passed.
Councillor Scott, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
You for or against that?
I'm for. It'll be coming back to vote on at the next meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm okay with that.
Thank you. Okay, 8.2, museum discussion. Okay, I'll get this started. I think it's very important that we get the museum opened up again. And I'd like to see some changes in the way we're doing this. I would tell you the truth, right now, we'd like us to look at funding the front end staff and stuff to open the museum. And then there are some other issues that have come up since this all happened with the closing of the museum and everything that's gone on. That I know a lot of council is concerned with. And I think we can address those problems down the road. But I really think that we spend a lot of money advertising our geopark, and part of that is our museum. And when people come to this town, they expect us to be able to go into that museum and see what we got there. I really think it's a priority. I think it's, I talked the other day about cutting the hurt that this town is going through because of what's going on right now. And I think this is one way we can do that. And we can solve the other issues we have after the fact, after we get it opened up again. Or try to get it opened up again. So I'd really like to see council look at funding front end of the museum to get it operational. That would, I think we already pay for the heating and all that stuff in the building. I think that should be billed maybe directly to us, and then the wages for the two or how many people are supposed to be sitting up out there and welcoming people there. So that's what I would like to see, and I'll open up to council to see what. Thank you for your phone call the other day, Will. I really appreciate your insights into this.
So just my question is when you say fund the front end staff, does that mean we would fund the people that allow people to come in and tour the museum and come back out?
Yeah.
That's all we would be funding at this point?
Yeah, and then look at it. And also the other thing I'd like to see us look at, and we don't have to do that today, is look at funding special projects. You know, if we want a certain thing done at the museum, we look at how we fund that. You know, we ask them what it's going to cost to do it, and then they come back. But I think there's a lot of other issues we got to discuss before that. We get to that point. But just to get the museum back open again, I think would be really good. I know I have a different look at this than most of council because I talked to a lot of people outside of town, and the question is, what are you guys doing up there? You know, you've got this great thing going on, and you seem to be letting it go. Well, they don't know the whole story, and you weren't at the last meeting, but I asked council to support me in keeping our problems here in town, and we'll sort them out here rather than, because I think it really hurts us when they go out of town. And when the news picks them up, I was part of that, and I didn't enjoy that too much. So that's why I'm looking at it from where I'm coming from. I'm not sure how the rest of you feel. Okay.
So just a couple things. One, I don't understand how they went into idle when Peace Regional District gave $200,000, and part of that $200,000 is on our budget. Because we contributed to PRD in regards to museums. So that's one question. The second one would be is how do we give money to that board and tell them how to spend it if we can't tell the library how to set the wages? Can you tell me what the two differences would be?
I don't know how that can be done. I would leave that up to staff.
But can it be done?
I don't know. But I would sure like to look and see if we can do that. And PRD thing is one of those issues that has to be discussed.
Your worship, I can answer that question. So if you wanted to enter into a funding arrangement with the museum for specific things, I would suggest council just enter into a deliverables contract with them, similar to that, the contract that you had before, where you had the 3-year agreement and they were supposed to deliver a number of deliverables. You enter into the same type of contract. We're going to fund you per month like this, as long as you do this. So you could just enter into a similar style service contract.
But it would be, we could do that on a, here's this amount of money for doing this, rather than what we did before was, here's $200,000. We would like you to do this.
Yeah, you could structure it where we're going to give you $2,000 a month, so long as you do X, Y, and Z. Stop doing X, Y, and Z, we're not going to give you the money, right? So you could look at it that way.
That's the type of thing.
So I got another thing there. So obviously PRD, I mean, to me, I don't understand why we haven't sent an email to the PRD asking them to send an email to find out again why we're idle, when they've been given $200,000, I believe, in February from the Peace Regional District. The other thing again is I don't see it on the desk yet, and I'm not sure, maybe I missed it today, but I've been in regards to saying, like you said, keep the business at home, but there's still no information out there to clear it all up.
It's
In the work?
Yeah. I've just been busy.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And on the PRD thing, the museum is showing up there on Thursday at the PRD meeting, and I'm sure this discussion will come up. Councilor Casey?
Thank you, Worship. Just a question, I'm not quite clear with regards to what the protocol would be or what the process would be. Is what we're saying, we would designate the amount that we're prepared to give, you come up with a work plan in terms of what you're going to be doing with the funds, or is it the other way around? Museum will be coming to us and saying, this is what we want to do for this year, let's say, and these are the dollars that we're going to need to be able to meet the mandate that we've set. And would you agree? I'm not quite sure of the process.
What I'm thinking of is that we go and say, what's it gonna cost, say, have a couple people up there, then the door's open, so people come see the museum. I think there's been a big question in the management, how this thing has been managed. There's been a lot of dollars go there, and when it shuts down, just after getting the PRD funding, it says to me that there's, because the PRD funding, I was in the PRD before, is for the Tumber Ridge Museum Foundation and the PRC. And so I don't know how all of a sudden we have to shut down the museum, and it doesn't seem to affect anything else. And that's the questions that'll be asked here at the board meeting on Thursday. Councilor Hall?
And I agree. To me, the funding is not clear enough. And that's why I was prepared to vote against it when we started this motion. And I have heard a lot of chitter chatter as well through the media and stuff. And it seems like to me there are people in the Peace River Regional District that assumed the $200,000 that they were getting or giving to the museum was to go to run the museum, was for the same thing that we're giving the money for, so that the museum doors are open, you can tour through and look at the exhibits and whatever. But to me, we were told as soon as we cut our funding, that's the wages of the people. So what does the $200,000 for the other part go? To me, it's just we've never had enough open discussion to have all these questions come out and talk about it and discuss it. You know, it's confusing as far as I'm concerned, and to make that decision on $200,000 until I have a clear picture of where that money is going, I'm not willing to spend the money. I don't have a clear picture on the library, so you know, and the library to me is just as critical, if not more critical, than what the museum is, and I'm willing to, you know, stick my neck out for $58,000 there. I'm sure going to stick my neck out for $200,000 here. And to me, this is where the rubber meets the road. You know, we've gave it 3.5 years with this council, and we decided, hey, you know, if we're not happy where it's going after 4 years, we have to come up with some way to get this provincially funded. You know, we are basically funding the research for us in the Peace River Regional District. They're funding the research for the province of British Columbia. When they have to go out and do these things and recover these fossils and whatever and store it and house it somewhere, the District of Tumbler Ridge pays for that. and so does the Peace River Regional District. It's time for the provincial government to come up with some funding for that type of stuff. I would have zero, if that was funded by the provincial government, I'd have zero problem paying for 1 or 2 people or whatever it takes to run the museum through the summer months or whatever, and that is kind of an entity of the District of Tumbler Ridge. No problem with that. But until we get the other portion of it figured out, how can we continue on? We need to have a sit-down meeting. That sit-down meeting with all of them, you know, in the same room, as far as I'm concerned.
The PRD money, just sort that out, it's not, there's no strings attached to that, it's given to them to spend how they see
Okay.
fit. So that's why, I think that's why that goes to the paleontology part of it.
But they had the assumption that that's to run a museum, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say, because it does say Tumbler Ridge Museum on the line. The issue I have, and when I say I've got some concerns with the management, is since we've been on, since this council, is 3.5 years now, there's been $1.6 million granted to the museum that I know of. Now, there might be a whole bunch more that I don't know of, but off the top of my head, I can think of 1.6 million. I really have a concern that we got to the point we got last month, and the museum shuts down. That was a decision of their board. I think it was wrong. I think it was done more to put us in a bad light than anything. And I think that has to be addressed. We've got to find out why they had to shut the doors. All that money has crossed the table in the last 3.5 years. So that's where I come from. That's Casey.
Thank you, Worship. I don't know what, if anything, has changed, but certainly the last report that I can recall seeing is involved the relationship that the museum either had or didn't have with the provincial government. There is, the only information that I can recall we as a council had received is the fact that there would be no money coming from either the museum down in Victoria or with the provincial government. That both parties were not interested in dealing with the local people in Tumbler Ridge relative to problems that they had encountered, the rest of it and so forth. And I think we've got that down in writing, that we were advised to that degree. And I haven't seen any report that's come before council that says that that relationship has changed one iota, that they are not getting funding from the provincial government. There's been no indications that they have rebuilt the bridges that they once had. And so until all of that information, in my opinion, comes to council so we can take an objective look at it, I think it should be put on hold until the museum comes up with a plan of their own, which will compensate or which will address those particular issues, and that those two components that are so necessary in the long-term operation for the museum have been addressed, and that they're back on a working relationship and so forth. But until that point, I think we're spinning our wheels. That's their call, that's their responsibility. I haven't seen anything come to council yet which would satisfy us that that's been done.
I thought we were on we talked, I don't know how many times we've been to the provincial government, discussed this with them, and in regard to funding, and that's been our argument all along, is for the longest time, we were the sole providers of any cash coming in, and that would be used to leverage other grants, there's no doubt about that. But there was a pathway set forward in which that would lead to provincial funding. Can you give us kind of brief explanation of why that never took place, or what happened there? Because I thought we were on the road to doing just that.
Sorry, you know what, I was reading something, can you just ask that last little bit?
Well,
Sorry,
we had a pathway that would lead to provincial funding, and it looked like there was definitely light at the end of the tunnel. Well, so I don't know what happened there, that tunnel is no longer there. I mean, something happened there, and I mean, it's any explanation of what that was or what happened?
Well, you know, I think we always look for that pathway to provincial funding. It just has never actually came to fruition. And I know last year it was looking at the TRMF and the geopark in a different light, you know, and trying to get the two groups and the district kind of more involved with a bigger group that would spearhead everything. And you know, and it was talked about amalgamation, which the Museum Foundation weren't really liking that. Getting, you know, a board that would oversee all the organizations, and then moving forward with that, becoming kind of like a super board that would entail the regional district would have a spot, ourselves, you know, the scientists, the presidents of both groups, possibly lawyer, industry. Because, I mean, what we have here is unique. And that was also stated is that, you know, paleontology, you know, the dinosaur finds and the paleontologist side of that is not the uniqueness that the geopark has, because the geopark, that designation is unique. But we need that we need that component of the science, you know, and the museum as the founders of this, they all play a role. And I think what's happened is that we've got, you know, all these groups who have different ideas ourselves, you know, as a district, we have an idea or a vision where our funding money is going to go, but none of us have that clear vision together moving forward. So, you know, I think the museum right now, the board is thinking that with the new NDP government, there's hope, and I know they would like us to go on their behalf to go and present, but I don't think we're ready to, because we don't know exactly how we're going to move forward. And so, as far as provincial funding, I believe we're still far from that. I think from day one they've said, you know, we're not ready to, you know, I think right back to the first, I think, feasibility study that Councillor Casely was on, as saying that, you know, they couldn't see that in the future, that we would have a purpose-built facility. But I know that that's still the PRPRC's main goal. So I don't know, to move forward, I think we really have to get everybody in, assess, make a plan moving forward together, because we have to be together. Right now, we're not together. We have a bunch of different ideas, and we have a building that we have a lease on to run as a museum that is closed. And we need to have the museum open. It's still a big part of what Tumbler Ridge is at this point. So, yeah.
Just a follow-up.
Just to add to that, you were at that meeting where we sat with 4 ministers and the premier.
Yep.
We talked about it, and everything was. That's the closest I think we ever were to get provincial funding. Then they sent some of the tourism people down up here, I think, and from the Royal BC Museum, and that was not accepted by our museum. So that's where that ended. And we've lost ground on provincial funding ever since that. So and now we got a new government, and the museum has brought up the idea of us getting a group together and going and talking to, which might.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was kind of wondering if so the recommendations put forward by the BC government and the Royal BC Museum were not followed by our own museum.
By our museum.
And that's what,
the idea.
and that's what brought things to a halt.
Yes.
Okay, well that's what everybody should know. That's what everybody should know. That it's not just the district of Tumbler Ridge pulling the plug on something. It's the fact that after years of frustration, being called names, in spite of the funding that has gone every single term, that we come to this point. Yeah.
Councillor Casey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to follow up on that as well. If I'm not mistaken, the residents at Tumbler Ridge who are included in this, we spend in excess of $3 million to the Tumbler Ridge Museum Foundation.
Yeah.
And during the course of that time, there were a number of the word I'm looking for, of different types of information that we required, that we wanted to have come in and so on and so forth, in terms of master plans, what they're gonna be working with, how they're gonna interact with the geopark, the rest of it, so on and so forth. And to my knowledge, we haven't received that information yet. We haven't received that. Now, am I wrong on that?
They have signed an MOU with the geopark, which was a big part of that.
And have we reviewed that and we've seen that?
I don't think we've seen it yet, I don't think.
I don't have a copy.
Because the reason I'm asking that is, unless we see that to at least say, hey, on behalf of the residents of Tumbler Ridge, we can do this. Without that, we're just once again taking their word for it, and I don't think that we're in a position that we should be acting that way. We should be able to get that by way of a draft, deal with council, have it up front, the rest of it, and so forth, and then settle it, and then we can proceed whatever the next step might be. But until that time, I think we're off base with regards to jumping that critical step. I really do.
Well, I'm sure that MOU would be part of a report coming to us if we bring this back to a regular council meeting, in whichever way we go. I would hope that would happen. Oh, Helen? Sorry,
Yeah.
didn't see you. I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was just listening to everything, and I think that MOU is going to be critical to move forward. I think we do need to continue pulling all the groups together until we figure out what everybody's wants are and what everyone's responsibilities are. Like, we as council have a certain role in distributing the monies, and we have those deliverables, and we need people that are working with us to make us distribute the money responsibly. So, for the media putting a dim light on what we've done, we're just holding our ground, trying to, getting a good working agreement going forward. So I think, it's too bad it came to this. I could see red flags when we initially sent that letter to the PRD, letting them know that there was, a little bit of, we hadn't received our deliverables. And I was hoping we could have handled that in-house at that time and got everybody working together then. Now we've got to kind of do damage control, and I'm not sure where, what's going to happen this year with the museum pulling the plug and, saying there aren't the employees. I don't think it's our position, though, to step in and fund that. What happens then? Do they become employees of the district? So I'm unclear on, where we'd go for this year to keep that open. And I think we need to continue working with that MOU and the things that we have been waiting for before we distribute the money. I would like to see all of the groups, the geopark, the museum, and, some more round tables, and get a really clear picture of where we are going, especially if we want to go forward to the provincial government, because we all need to be united or we're going to go nowhere.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we expect to see the 2017 financials from the Museum Foundation?
They would have been provided already in the grant and aid package. Their audited financials would have been in the grant and aid package.
Let me just have a little look at this, and maybe I'm missing something here. This is the grant and aid package here, right? Yeah. And this is 16.
Okay, so then the 2017 would be coming next year.
Okay.
I mean, you could ask them for it. It would probably be
The year end
unaudited.
is November 2017, right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
All I can say is that I agree with a lot of what Helen said. The only thing, there's been things said and things done here in the last little while that I wish had never happened. I'm the same way. I wish that when we gave that letter back in last July, that it would have been handled then. But no, it was left to our budget season this year. And then there's been things done since then that I think have to be talked about. I think it shows a trend. And when we're putting the amount of money if we put in taxpayers' money into the museum, these things have to be answered. They can't be ignored. So, consider.
What things are you talking about?
I'm talking about, staff going on the radio, calling us the misinformed, council. I'm talking about, people going and getting hold of, other, doctors in, by email and having them hold their support from our geopark. I've talked to, Dr. Helm about this. He said that's, just the way doctors do things. It seemed really funny to me. It says to me that what's good for this town doesn't seem to be why these things are done. And I always have thought that the reason we're sitting and do things at this table is to promote this town. And I think when we're funding to the amount that we funded the museum, that same thought should be involved in things they do. So I really have some issues with some of that stuff, and I don't know. I have trouble getting by it. Yes.
So just to comment to some of that, because some of it I knew and some of it I didn't. But to me, when the museum's got staff going around and soliciting other doctors to pull their support from another organization, to me, you would think that board would be all over that. You know, and I've seen some emails, and I wish they would become part of our correspondence. I mean,
Don't have them.
okay. Because to me, that when people are emailing us, those are open emails, is my understanding.
So council has a bylaw, any letter, correspondence that is addressed to mayor and council needs to come on a council agenda. Anything that I have that has been addressed to mayor and council has come on an agenda. I believe there's things that I don't have copies of, which is why it hasn't come on an agenda. So if those are forwarded to me, I can put them on.
I don't think these were two mayor and council, they were to the geopark.
Okay, yeah, so the bylaw is if it's addressed to mayor and council, it goes on an agenda. So if it's addressed to mayor and council, somebody should forward it to me and I can include it on the agenda. If it's not, then it's not an issue.
So if it's addressed to another organization, then it's forwarded on to us. Is that not the same thing?
I'll have to check the bylaw, what the bylaw says.
Just curious. And not that I'm not trying to put anybody out there, I'm not about that, but same aspect, you know, if we got misinformation out there and everybody doesn't have that information and they make decisions on that, and then we're coming back in here trying to say, oh geez, we should support opening the front end, when to me, they were already given $200,000 by the PRD, which we contributed to that $200,000 as well. But they went to, I don't understand that.
These are things that I think have to be discussed, and hopefully the museum will be part of those discussions. So I guess I need a motion to bring this back to a regular meeting and see if we can at least fund the front end of the museum until we sort this out. That's what I need, I guess. Is that what Mr. Olson?
Yeah, if that's your path forward, I mean, maybe the more appropriate motion at this time would be to have staff consult with the museum to get that number for you. Because I won't be able to come up with that number, I'll have to get it from the museum.
I'm just thinking that budget time's coming up, and I don't know what kind of time crunch you're in, you know that better than I do.
The agenda for the last meeting before budget is done tomorrow morning. So if council wants to approve funds after that, you can make a budget amendment at the end of the year. It's really, I mean, I've talked about this a number of times. Council has the authority to spend money outside your budget. The reason why the budget happens is that it's a consultative process and the residents of Tumbler Ridge know to expect when to watch when you guys are spending money. You can spend it outside of that time, but you generally are supposed to keep it within your budget frame, but you're more than able to. There's nothing stopping you from spending money outside of that.
So the District of Tumbler Ridge owns the building, but we lease it to the Museum Foundation, right? So who owns all the stuff in the museum?
Take the museum.
The Museum Foundation owns all the exhibits and the whatever, and can do with what they wanted to with that stuff. If
I'm not sure.
So I'm not an expert on all of this, but I'll give you my best understanding. So the Museum Foundation owns the displays. They created them. The actual resources are owned by the provincial government. So the best I understand it, the museum is able to do what they want with the displays, but they're not able to do what they want with the resources. So the paleontological resources are protected by provincial legislation for which they are caretakers of on behalf of the provincial government. The actual interpretive displays are the property of the museum.
So we take care of them for the provincial government.
The Museum Foundation does,
The
yes.
Museum Foundation does, with the money they receive from the PRD and us, and grants and memberships and whatever else they can.
That's correct.
So we do all that for the provincial government.
That's correct.
You know, it's time to get the provincial government involved here. Like, you know, if they were not there, like if we did not have people to whatever they do with them up there to keep them so they don't break or dry out or whatever they do up there, who would then come in and take that over? If we were to completely shut the museum down and it's done, it's never reopened, and we've got all this stuff up here, who would take that over?
Probably the Royal BC Museum, I would think, would do something with that, I'm not sure what. But, I don't know, it's a province who owned it, so they have to do something with it.
Thank you, Your Worship. And this is where the problem comes, is right now, if we were to say, if worse came to worse and everything was to shut down, would the province come and get it? What are we gonna do with it? Because right at this point, up until now, all the money that's been invested in housing that and taking care of it is really just what we've done. Because the province still has shown, that's been the ask for every year, and they still are not putting money to it. So that's the concern, is how long do we just keep going on that? You know, could the money be used in different areas? You know,
Well,
it's not clear.
they are continuing forward, though the museum has not.
Yeah.
The Museum Foundation is still continuing
Yeah.
to do what it does up there, housing and doing the research and doing whatever they're doing up there with it, right?
The peers,
So
the
that money is coming from the
paleontologists.
Peace River Regional District, because here's your 200 grand, do whatever you want with it, right?
Yeah.
But is the Peace River Regional District aware if that's where their money is being spent? Do they realize that they don't pay for any of it to keep the doors open so that people can come in and view the museum? Do they realize that that's where that money goes, or do they care?
There's some concerns.
Okay.
It'll come out in meeting on Thursday, I would think.
Because perhaps they should care a little bit more where their money goes to as well.
Well, I think they do now.
Yeah.
I think they weren't all that concerned, they just thought it was going to the right places. And they do have some concern now. And you know, a lot of this stuff could probably be sorted out with some conversation with the groups. But, you know, I tell you, it's frustrating, and to me, it's, you know, when you say we gotta go after the provincial government, we've been doing that for how many years? Every time we've gone down there, we talk about how they should be picking up some of the ball. We spend a lot of money bringing ministers up here, flying them around the area and all that, taking them to the museum at the inauguration of the geopark, I think is what we did that. And just blew their socks off. They just loved the place. They would have done anything for us. Minister Bond, well, it's Shirley Bond now, but it was Minister Bond at the time. And we just let it slide away, you know. We were, I said, that close to getting provincial funding, but we couldn't get an agreement here in town on the things that they said should be doing. This is why we're at where we're at.
So then that's what we need to do, right? Let's call a spade here, right? Like, you know, unfortunately, the District of Tumble Ridge and us as council and staff are taking the brunt of this thing. But at the end of the day, there were some things that could have been done to get us to provincial funding, like what Rob was alluding to,
Yeah.
right? We all thought that that's the direction we were headed, and then we were told that no, the museum would not sign certain documents, or would not allow the Royal BC Museum to have their flavor in there, or whatever it is. And that's the story that needs to get out. That's what people need to know about. There's a heck of a lot more to it than what's on the surface, because that's the way I understand it, that we were right there. And so that's where I know that we should have that meeting. We should have everybody come sit around the table, bring the museum board in, and bring whoever else needs to be on board. I still would like to have the guy, I always forget his name, from the provincial government,
Bruce Wade.
Bruce White. And like, he was the guy that basically was telling us this is the path forward for provincial funding, was it not?
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, why would we not have him in to represent, you know, how you're gonna get money from the government? That's how you're gonna do it. So we all need to listen to him, and then you can, if he says, you guys, you need to do this, you need to do A, and we say, okay, we'll do A, are you guys willing to do A? And they say no, and then they can explain it to us why they're not willing, then we make the decision on A and we move on to B. Like, and I don't understand why it's so, you know, we're all here talking about it and they're all over there talking about it. We can't get together and have this meeting. We've tried, but let's put out the meeting request again. So let's, you know, maybe we don't have to have it on camera. Maybe it can be in a rooms 4 and 5 or less formal than what this is, but.
Yeah, all I gotta keep saying is that we put a big effort into this. I mean, if you wanna, you talk about the funding that we've done, that's a small part of it. Well, maybe not a small part, but there's more to this. We've traveled down there, I don't know how many times, and talked this story. And you know, the thing is, yeah, we got a new government. Those staff people are still the same people that you're talking to with the Liberal government. The only guy that's different is the guy right at top, the minister. So, you know, they're still the guys that told us this is what you should be doing. So, and I think there's a path forward here. But as I told Dr. Helm when I talked to him last time, if we're going to do that, if we're going to go down there and they've got to have some kind of commitment that they will do what is suggested by the province, because there's no point going down there, finding out what they want, and then coming back here and saying, no, we're not going to do that.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So what are we looking for here?
Motion. Can I put a motion on the floor?
Sure.
That would allow staff to explore the costs associated with keeping the visitor section of the paleontology or the museum open to visitors.
Okay. Seconder for that? We'll have discussion. Okay. Seconder for that? I'll second it. Okay, discussion.
Would that include the dinosaur discovery gallery in the front end? That would be the two, okay.
Would you like me, is this a negotiation between the district and the museum, or is this just requesting information? What do you think it will cost?
Just the cost of,
A request to them to provide the cost?
yeah,
Okay.
I think that's right. Okay, all in favor of that? Opposed? 2 opposed. Helen, where were you?
I'm opposed.
Okay, so 3 opposed, 4. It's passed. Okay, 8.3, vehicle use policy. I'm not up to date on this, so maybe you can,
Yeah, I've had a couple questions. I think some of the questions were on, I'll tackle it in 2 different areas. One, the after hours access to vehicles for a number of staff. I believe the report is in here, and the second one was the fire. So after hours access to staff, everything that's in the report I'd stand by. I had questions on whether or not this is common or this is something that's done in the district of Tumber Ridge. So I reached out to Chetwynd, position for position, pretty much Chetwynd matches us. They allow the public works manager, community services manager, they call it Parks and Recreation to have access, to have after hours vehicles, so to take them home at the end of the day, come back. Their utility foreman, their roads, I didn't call it a roads foreman, but the equivalent position does the same. So I asked them what their philosophy on it was, and their philosophy is similar to what we have in the report. If you're expected to come in on weekends or expected to come in on the evenings, then you're able to have that. I talked to Dawson Creek. Dawson Creek provides that opportunity to their managers, their foremans. They're more expansive than we are. Their manager, the foremans, and by law actually takes their vehicles home because they're expected to respond on the weekends as well. Fort St. John was similar. So in our region, we're doing pretty much exactly what everybody else is doing. With the fire department, there was questions about people being in the vehicle. So the fire department vehicle is different than all the other vehicles in the district of Tumber Ridge in that it's operated by volunteers. It's not operated strictly by people within, or by employees. So this procedure has been happening for a number of years, for as far back as anyone can remember. What happens for the most case if there is other people in the vehicle? The standard operating procedure is that the command vehicle reports to the fire hall. Once a second member attends to the fire hall, they'll go. So most of the time, if there are other passengers in the vehicle, they'll be dropped off at the fire hall and then they'll go and attend. There has been the rare cases where that wasn't possible, where the people in the vehicle made it to the scene. But the standard operating procedure is that you have to go to the fire hall, wait for someone else to come in. At that point, you unload your passengers and go to the scene.
I know my only concern, and told you about it, was holidays. I've seen vehicles parked, town vehicles parked yards, and I've seen snow on. I think when somebody on a holiday, they should be parked at
Sure.
That's my concern. I don't see that it's been abused that much anywhere else.
Thank you. So yeah, I was in and talked to Mr. Wall. I didn't get a chance to talk to Mr. Curry at all. Yeah, and you explained it straight out and stuff like that, and I appreciate that. The only thing I have, and it's with the fire department, hats off to them for all they do, including all the members that are volunteering and running command. I'd like to know if there's any liability to the district if a child is riding in the fire truck, and over the years there is some different age children that ride in it. If they were to get PSTD, what kind of liability do we have?
There's no court cases to determine that, so there's always a risk to the community. Again, we try and minimize it with that standard operating procedure. If you're talking about children and they're the children of the person in the vehicle, so you know that it's their children, it would be very hard for them to convince a judge that the district is responsible for their own actions. But if there was different children in there might be a different story, but there's no case law on this that we're aware of, so there's no way to say for sure.
We're just
Go ahead, yeah.
So just to follow up on that, I know Mr. Curry did answer an email. Councillor Kirby had talked to him about it, but in regards to proper seat belts, proper booster seats or car seats.
Mm-hmm.
So I know Mr. Curry, he mentioned how they have different insurance on that, which I believe the district pays for.
Yes.
So my own philosophy there, I mean, I'm sorry, I work in the services. I mean, like I said, hats off to the gentleman that's sitting in there and they do the command vehicle and actually respond to these calls. Injury. I know you have insurance for that, but you know, that's a huge concern to me. I mean, wouldn't be the first fire department to have an issue. So that's my only concern. I mean, hats off to the guys, and then you did understand, explain the other ones there when I came in and talked to you about it. And there's no taxable income worried there in regards to personal use of the vehicles when it's not from home to work, where they stop somewhere or not stop somewhere.
I mean, I don't want to get into telling staff what their I'm not giving advice to staff on the filing of their personal income taxes. If they're not filing their personal income taxes properly, they're going to have an issue with CRA that's outside of the district's concern.
If it's a benefit of employment though, like it would have to be recorded, right? Like, I mean, if you need a vehicle for work, that's a different story between being able to take the vehicle home and have use with it to and from work, right? So the company I work for is the same type of thing. Like you have the ability to be on call 24 hours a day, so you have a truck, but we still get taxed on personal use on it. You know, anything from going to the grocery store is personal use. So like,
Which is not extended to District of Tunbridge employees. There's no personal use for District of Tunbridge employees. If you're out on shift and you stop somewhere for lunch, that's a
I
different
see.
story, but you can't, like,
Take it to Costco or whatever.
no, if you're on the, like, let's say you're down on the bottom bench and you need to go up to the top bench where you live and I'll shop easy on the way. No, you're expected to go home,
Yeah.
get there, get your vehicle, come back. So there's no personal use on that. And again, I'm not gonna get into what the CRA does or doesn't do, but
Fair enough.
yeah.
To me, if it's just if it is a benefit of employment, it should be in the employment contract, and then you know that's a benefit for you to work here, like a cell phone is, or anything else. You have the use of that cell phone when you're at work, right? As for insurance, I'm sure you've checked into this by now. If anybody, child or not, is in any of the district vehicles, are those people insured?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
so-
we've got complete insurance, because we have people in our vehicles from time to time. Grisfest is a great example. There's numerous people outside the district that are being used. If events are happening, sometimes people will come in. Generally, the public does not enter district vehicles. There are instances where it will happen, but we're insured for anybody being in there. If you're in there for district purposes, you're insured. Even if you're not in there for district purposes, you are insured.
Okay.
It goes back, it's similar to any type of insurance. If you are traveling, like if you buy the insurance to travel to and from work within 15, whatever it is, and for 5 days in the year, your house is being renovated, so you're staying in Chetwynd, you get an accident on those 5 days, it doesn't mean your insurance isn't
Okay.
valid, right?
Yeah.
Anything else? Oh, Helen, did you have something?
No, I'm good.
Okay. There's nothing we have to do with that, but,
Nope.
Okay. Okay, the third one, fourth one, 8.4 is, welcome to Timber Ridge entrance sign. I just got a little bit I'm gonna throw in here. Is that, we got, given these pictures of these nice big signs, and they're pretty awesome looking signs. But nowhere along the line, and I've asked 3 times, where are they gonna go? Because the big sign that we seem to all like, or some of it anyway, won't go where our signs are right now. I think they look terrible there. But if that's where the signs gotta go, I think we've gotta look at some of the smaller signs. I think we gotta know where they gotta go before we can really get serious about what signs we need. That's the way I feel about it. And I don't know what the rest of the council thinks. Councilor Hall?
Do you mean like the big sign can't go where the one is coming up from Flatbed because of proximity to power lines?
Well, I just don't think a huge sign would look good where we're stuck in these little places like where we got the 3 signs. The only one that's really got a lot of room around it is the one on the way to Protect.
Flatbed Falls. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, because I have driven around and I have looked at where they could go. There is some places that those big ones could go, but it's not where, in my mind, it's not where the ones are right now. And I just think we gotta know that before we can really get serious about this. Councilman, Mr. Wall.
Just to let council know that is where we are in this process, so council has decided the type of signs and the design that you want. A big part of, this is a new report, there's a report that came in recently, was just to tell council a couple things. One, this project's not gonna get done this year, because we still need to figure out the exact question that you have, where are we gonna put them. So this was to let you know on the installation costs, which were higher than what we thought they were going to be. And then 2, that's what we're going to do, is we're gonna find out where we're gonna put them, we'll come back to council and you guys can make a decision. So our goal is to, at the end of summer, have identified what signs are going where they're going to be, and have all the information created to send out our request for tender. And then it'll be up to council, do you wanna send out that request for tender this year, or do you want to leave it and have the next council take a look at it and send out the request for tender? This one, for some projects, so let's say our streets, it's fine to release the tender into the year because the companies aren't gonna make a bid early because they wanna see what the total work is. When we're talking about this type of creative design, it will take lead up, right? So if the decision is not to release the tender until, let's say April next year, it might not get constructed next year because it's gonna take them a month or 2 months to figure out the designs, do the castings, get the materials, construct them, get them ready, bring them in, build a base, install. So if you want them done next year, it would make sense to release that tender towards the end of summer this year, once everything's figured out. But you guys are gonna have to decide if you want to make that decision for the next council, because you will be spending their money.
And again, I don't know if we got into the cost, but for lighting them, like, that to me is a huge thing. I want to have them lit so that people come into town. We have more than 8 months per year of winter here, so it'd be nice that you can see them lit. And I know that is a stumbling block at this point, whether we're doing renewable energy to do it or we're going to try to put in a transformer to step the power down.
The easiest and cheapest way is going to be putting solar powered lights on there. If we are talking about trying to figure out how to attach a small wind turbine and get that powered, this is going to be a long and difficult process, to be honest, but that's council's decision. So maybe my suggestion, and this is with the caveat that it saves us a ton of work, is let's put some solar powered lights in there. But if council really wants us to figure out how to work a wind turbine, we'll keep working at it.
I can live with the solar panels for sure. I mean, I don't like them. I think we are a wind community, and I would hope that the wind community would hear us tonight and maybe come and offer some suggestions of how we can get a wind turbine on there. But if, you know, it is going to create a lot of work for you guys to do it, and the easy and cheap solution is solar, then, you know, I mean, I have no problem if we stick to that to lessen the load on staff for sure. But to me, I still think it'd be great if we could come up with some way to have wind up there. But again, not interested in you guys spending a pile of time to make that happen for us. So
Myself and John talked to the gentleman from Pattern, and he actually suggested that we don't go with the wind. He said it would be a big deal. He said it'd be smart to look at another way of lighting it. Councilor Mackay.
Yeah, I have absolutely no doubt these signs need to be replaced. I think it's overdue. But when we started, thanks to staff for the amount of work they've done on this, because there really has been a bit of an eye-opener. But never did I ever envision it was going to cost $410,000 to replace 3 signs, and that's not counting whether we go with power or anything. That would all be extra. And who knows what other costs that could work its way into that. And on that, based on that alone, I mean, I'm ready to start from scratch. And maybe let another council deal with it, because we're not going to have any time, as Mr. Wall pointed out. I think we're a little late in the term, but like $410,000, and who knows if it's not going to be more. It's far more than I ever thought that we were going to be looking at.
If we're going to leave it for the next council, we'll have to come up with a letter to send to both Pattern and maybe everybody else that we've sent letters to, that let them know that we're kind of backing off on this one, because both Pattern and Kinuma have said they don't think we're part of this. And Mark came up with a pretty good idea too. He emailed me. I haven't brought it to council, but put those kind of signs with a thermometer, and as you get donations, it goes up. It's probably something that might work. You know, other industries around and other people that want to. Doesn't have to be a $30,000 donation. It could be a $100 donation.
So I think Councilor Mackay brought up a good point, and you guys, council's going to need to really discuss and give direction on this. Are we continuing to move forward to find locations and designs for these signs, or are we going back to the drawing board to try and get something a little bit cheaper, or a lot cheaper, however it is you guys feel? That's a really good question, and I would request just direction on that sooner rather than later. I'm not saying it has to be tonight, but sooner rather than later, because we're moving forward right now with the idea that this project is council's desire. If it is not council's desire, the sooner we know, the less wasted work. Maybe what I can do, just to give council a frame of reference, is why don't we bring a report to one of the next meetings, just with some examples of signs that have gone up in different communities recently, what they looked like, what the costs were, and you can go from there, because it might turn out that this is just what entrance signs cost, and it might turn out that these are, you know, pretty premium entrance signs. I think these look pretty good. It might be that these are more expensive, but this might just be the cost of doing business. We can find that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. Ready. Question and answer period. Questions or? Okay, Chairman.